Hello, I've been pretty vocal on this channel about how I'm a bit of a fan of Outlast. It's the video game equivalent of a haunted house, and I seriously can't get enough of that insane found-footage nightmare roller coaster ride game. Everyone knows the original set in a Colorado madhouse, Mount Massive Asylum, but the 2017 sequel, Outlast 2, didn't get the same extreme positive reaction as the original game did. Although I personally loved Outlast 2, the future of Outlast was looking a bit grim at the time, until Red Barrels announced their next Outlast project. Not Outlast 3, although they said that would be made, but a prequel exploring the horrid exploits of Markov years before the first game, during the Cold War, the twisted experiments that led to Mount Massive, the Wall Rider, to Temple Gate. It was a really cool idea to finally get a little light shed on how Markov even discovered this concept of mind control through extended fear exposure, let alone the fact that it would be multiplayer. That wasn't a good sign, at least for me. Multiplayer and horror usually don't go together so elegantly, so the table was set. Now we just needed to wait for the game to fully release. Which hasn't happened yet, but I gotta play like 25 hours of the beta, so I want to talk about it. Of course, this is a beta, so a lot of content is missing and subject to change, but it was such a fun beta and such a good time that I just had to dig my claws in a little early. Sorry, Red Barrels. Anyway, right off the bat, my favorite thing about the Outlast trials is the setup and style. In other Outlast games, you would play as a protagonist with thoughts and a voice, either written or spoken, a journalist out seeking the truth.
Oh, shit. Jesus. Lynn! Oh, fuck me. Fuck. That did not happen in the crash.
Trials is the first game in which you basically play as yourself, however. Well, you basically play as some random person on the streets at the height of the Cold War. According to this behind-the-scenes video, it takes place in 1959, sometime during that era of fear and political argument. Markov was being shady. You can find a flyer for some sort of job. The front says, "Are you lost, lonely, poor, confused? We want you. Let the miracles of science give you purpose. The world owes you everything. Men and women of any race, religion, class, or political persuasion, stop by one of our convenient volunteer centers before this opportunity is gone forever." Clearly echoing military drafts of the time with the "we want you." Of course, this is an Outlast game, so when you go to that center to find a job, you're knocked out, bagged, and thrown into a meatpacking truck. Immediately, the atmosphere is super oppressive. The first thing you see after taking the job is the truck. Somebody wakes up, confused, and says,
"I'm not supposed to be here."
One of the guards responds aggressively, bashing the man's head in, saying, "You all deserve what you get." The people working in the field justify their actions because of how they see you as low-life scum, deserving of punishment. It seems Markov brainwashes their own employees a bit. You're then driven somewhere unknown. I'm gonna call this entire location the Sinyala facility because that's what the documents told me. You're wheeled through corridors, carried by doctors with nothing but your worst interest in mind. When they pull the bag off your head, you're greeted with the horror of a defiled and destroyed human corpse with some night vision goggles screwed into their head. You don't know what's going on, but you know it's bad. A screen appears. A man introduces himself as Dr. Hendrik Joliet Easterman. He's your friend. We learn a bit about Easterman in this beta, but his character is the obvious mystery at the center of the Outlast trials. His history, how he participated in Markov's goals, and where he ended up afterward. While this video is playing, the doctors inject you with a small sedative. Keyword small.
Dr. Henry, your friend.
Seemingly recklessly going through with this part of the process, you get the vibe that they've done this countless times before. Show the video, give them the speech, put the goggles on, next. During this process, they bring out your public and private records. Oh no! All that stuff I didn't want anyone to know about. Like that one thing. They tell you that these are your belongings, instantly creating such a terrifying atmosphere. They already know everything about you. The female doctor asks you for your consent.
As the restraints make a signature impossible, please acknowledge that you consent.
Before you can answer, your head is grabbed and forcefully shaken up and down. Yes, you do consent, or at least that's what Markov will tell the police if they haven't paid them off already. You're trapped here, one of Markov's new toys to play around with. I love this strange mix of dead, serious, and corny horror fun. It's what made the original so memorable to me, that sense of camp. Glad to see it return. I'm pretty sure these two are a couple, judging by the darling said by the female one.
Oh, we're all going to get better.
Right then.
Together.
It's all right here.
I stand this couple. The doctors screw the night vision goggles onto your head using a heavy-duty drill with basically no anesthetics. The male doctor says, "I just hate seeing their eyes." Waking up after your surgery, you're in a dingy, dark warehouse. God knows where you are, but it's not safe. You can now use these night vision goggles as a way to see in the dark, much like the cameras from the previous two games. But while in Outlast 1 and 2, the camera was your only hope. Even though you're going through hell, there's at least a chance that this footage may be seen one day. Hope that word got out. That's lost with the night vision goggles. Instead of a camera to document your suffering, you're alone. In fact, you're being watched constantly. It gives me this eerie feeling of isolation and containment. Nobody is coming to help you. No matter how many people you encounter, sane or insane, it's all carefully constructed and controlled by Murkoff. These goggles will help you survive, though. Who knows how many died before Murkoff realized subjects needed them. You do find bodies without night vision goggles, so they probably did just throw people in here without them. After moving forward a bit, you encounter this big house. A flash of artificial lighting reveals you're in a massive warehouse. No real sun here. This is your home. It's where you'll be preconditioned. Preconditioning is a concept where a subject needs to be prepared for future circumstances. Preconditioning usually involves creating mental links between ideas such as pain and joy, dark and safe, noise and death, authority and fear. Murkoff is getting you ready for their program. TVs scattered across all areas flash text, and briefly you can even see small pieces of the morphogenic engine. This is the therapy. This area in the house mainly acts as a tutorial, a place for you to unlearn all your previous understanding of the world so you can be prepared for your new life. Now I think is a great time to talk about the gameplay, because holy shit, they've made some serious improvements. Outlast Trials is a multiplayer game, but it's not PvP like DBD or the upcoming Texas Chainsaw game. It's still a PvE survival horror experience. But of course, with a more fleshed out concept like this, you're gonna need a little more than just running and crawling around on the floor. For one, you can actually defend yourself. Kinda. Although you can't hit enemies with a 2x4, you can use a variety of items to maneuver around any X-Pop. X-Pop are experimental population. They're put here by Murkoff for you to encounter. The X-Pop are the one thing stopping you from completing goals that Murkoff sets up for you, giants and psychos with knives, as well as special populace that have names and backstory. In Outlast 1 or 2, your only option would be to run, but here you've got lots of choices. You can still run, in fact running away is a very valid strategy for luring enemies somewhere else, or just running because you have no other method of defense and you're scared. But there's also bricks and bottles you can throw at enemies or use them for stealth. There's health potions that heal you, which of course insinuates that you have an actual health bar and you can be revived by other players. There's lockpicks that let you open locked cabinets and loot containers containing all sorts of goods that can help you out, including the small and large batteries that power your massive night vision rig you wear around your entire body. You're no longer able to carry as many small AA batteries from previous games, only able to carry about 3 total. But other than some expected game mechanics, there's also some new stuff. For one, you can actually crouch. Like a real video game crouch. No longer will you have to crawl around on the ground like a baby bitch. You can actually sneak in this game, and it works really well. Using darkness as a cover from whatever threats hunt you down, the crosshair in the center measures your light and sound, which is quite the step up mechanically, even from Outlast 2. You can also jump, do a swift little Dying Light style dodge that's really useful, as well as being able to do some moves not seen in other Outlast games. Running and closing a door behind you, and the small hop over traps and mines. Your sprint gets faster the more you do it, but it'll exhaust you eventually, much like in Outlast 2. It's cool to see them expand the movement systems into something a bit more fleshed out, not to mention all the other shit you deal with. Throughout your time in the Murkoff facility, you will get gassed. A lot. The shit makes you woozy. Can't break your mind down to its bare systems unless you're all drugged up. It makes all the sounds wobbly and even makes the in-game VoIP wobbly too. Very difficult to hear what your friends are saying when you're high as a kite. But if you get too crazy, there's another threat. If your sanity gets low enough, you'll begin to see the Skinner Man, some sort of hallucinated threat that can kill you very fast. He's probably the scariest enemy in the game, both lore and gameplay-wise. He reminds me of Blake's hallucinations in Outlast 2, or even the Wall Rider in the first game. According to lore documents, he is a shared hallucination. Eerie. You can also hide from enemies, of course, although there is a chance that a little fucker will jump out from any hiding spot and beat the shit out of you. Sometimes you have to carry around large objects from place to place as well. Basic objective type things. All of these mechanics coming together for a chaotic but a very fun, scary haunted house game experience. That's about it, actually, in terms of gameplay so far. At least that's what we get in the first level. So let's check back on our preconditioning. Murkoff wants you to destroy your personal and private records. It's probably not a good idea, but what choice do you have? Either that or get slashed by a psycho, punched by a giant, shocked to death by a psycho cop, drilled by Mother Gooseberry. Mother Gooseberry is a children's entertainer gone totally psycho crazy. I'd love to talk about her, but we basically have nothing on her. She's a crazy lady with a duck that she talks to that's also a drill. I can't wait to learn more, but for now, she exists. After shredding your records, you're now Murkoff's plaything, and you can also escape imminent death. Although that'll probably only prolong your suffering. You have completed your preconditioning. You're also probably now keenly aware of how fucked you are. Finally, we reach the sleep room. The sleep room acts as your prison and your hub. It's probably one of the most clean and nice-looking environments Red Barrels has ever designed for an Outlast game, which I think is funny. I didn't think they were capable of making relaxing areas. But I love the sleep room. You can see other confused players that are just as scared and desperate to escape as you. The scientists loom over the large area, watching us. This area is where you can relax, arm wrestle some other players, check on your files and upgrades, hang out in your cell.
Don't think of it as a prison cell, but as a monk's cell. A place of contemplation. A womb where you can absorb the hard lessons of the trials.
You can customize your character with some nice gear, as well as finally getting yourself some shoes. You had to earn those. Truly a privilege in the Outlast universe. People with shoes tend to die though, so who knows. My only worry is that this game's currency system will eventually turn into a microtransactions deal, which would absolutely suck. I'd hate to see this game get ruined by that. I really like the current system of rewarding you more money based on how well you perform in a match. I think that's cool. It encourages you to play the game good, and then you can get more cosmetics and shit. I don't know, that's fun. You can also select your rig here, a tool you can use throughout the trial to save your ass. There's a stun, a throwable item that stuns enemies for a short time but also angers them. Smoke, a mine that does a very similar thing but with a smoke effect and probably also blinds enemies. There's a heal, a small device that you can use to heal yourself and teammates around you. And X-ray, a location device that lets you see in the dark without night vision and tracks nearby enemies and marks them for other players. These are all pretty self-explanatory, honestly. They work great and act as a perfect way to defend yourself in a pinch, but they aren't going to give you an extreme advantage beyond a few select moments. The sleep room is a really great hub. It's simultaneously comfortable and eerie. I mean, you aren't being chased by a psycho with his dick out or being gassed, so it's kinda nice. But this area is only this way because Murkoff wants it to be. They need you to have this downtime. They need to study you when you're docile and happy so they can document your change in behavior when they torture you again. I don't doubt this area will have a lot of story progression between trials too. These characters in particular look like there'll be actual people you can get to know in the final game. I don't know, their poly count's just a bit higher, I can kind of tell. You can also have a squat and read all the notes you find out in the field. Murkoff talks of breaking down our personalities, grinding us down like rocks in a rock tumbler with the ultimate goal of putting you under their control. In an especially eerie document, you can read about subjects that eventually made it out. They read the following. Subject 0877 made it out, went through all this bullshit, then goes to a baseball game, gets some food at a restaurant. They got out, but now they're being constantly monitored by Murkoff, testing trigger words for some mysterious ultimate goal. It's not looking good for those of us on the inside. Another regent that got out, but they left differently. One subject, they escaped. This subject that escaped, watch a bird fell from a power line, then they stepped on it. Later, they tell a coworker, the bird was pulled from the sky by the power of the mind. Who knows what they actually did to end up getting out, and who knows what happened to their poor brain, covered in lesions and trauma. Regardless of any of that, no matter how long you wander around, you will have to go back there. Therapy is ready. So let's talk about the one and only level available in this beta. Snitches Get Stitches, also known as the police station, is the only level that was playable during the beta. Each trial goes something like this, from my understanding. Get in, sit down, have a nice little synopsis of whatever bullshit you're about to endure, get in there, complete some objectives, which I assume will vary depending on the level, then get out. Sounds simple, but it's the complications in between that make the levels what they are. Speaking of levels, here we are. This game's level design is fucking fantastic. While Outlast 1 is like an asylum movie and pretty linear, and Outlast 2 is like if Silent Hill and Rec had a child and it's very non-linear and much more open and confusing, Outlast Trials just dives fully into the surrealist horror with this one. Every area is ridiculously detailed, not just with gore and previous victims, but with mannequins, old stores and cars, old scavenged signs and decaying buildings. Walking up to the police station, you get the feeling that you're outside, but you aren't. Still trapped in the Murkoff funhouse. These areas are so fucking awesome to look at and run around in, especially making great use of those mannequins. They never go full-on RE8 DLC, but they will create an eerie presence. With the amount of varying enemies and threats, seeing a mannequin around a corner can look like a person about to shank you to bits or fucking shoot you in the face. It's freaky. All the old signs and cardboard cutouts, it feels like you're backstage at a theater production, except no matter where you run, no matter where you turn, you're always trapped in this surrealist nightmare. It's awesome. This area is trying to imitate a police station, which it does pretty well. You can find a whole ass station down here, from cells to more professional and less violent areas. Well, it's all violent, but it doesn't look or feel like it's supposed to be. It's extremely uncanny, but great level design. Tight claustrophobic corridors and hallways make for such tense gameplay. But the game doesn't feel as linear as Outlast 1. They made the areas tighter, but still expanded outwards, giving the maps this maze-like quality that really adds to the surreal feel. It's especially surreal, whoa, fucking word of the day, with all these weirdos chasing you around. And there's a few different weirdos in this area alone, so let's get to know them. Trials enemies come in about 7 different forms. Variants, which I'm going to call them variants because they are very similar to the guys from Outlast 1, weirdos that have been experimented on and broken. They now chase you down with all kinds of varying weapons and desires. Giants, these huge slow motherfuckers that can do about half your health in one swift punch. There's 2 giants in the first level, this martyrs looking motherfucker with metal attached to him, as well as Leroy, this weird naked guy that is spouting nonsense about religion or politics or something. They're slow, but they can deal a fuckload of damage on you if you aren't careful. There's the jumpers, these weird little fuckers that hide in cabinets and jump out at you until you do a QTE. It's also odd to notice that they seem to be defending themselves. These poor guys were probably once like you, until they went totally mad. There's Screamer. He's my personal favorite. I love his design. He's a little cutie. A weird little fella that has loads of audio tech strapped to him. He likes to hang out in dark areas in the quiet. If you disturb him, however, he can stun you for a good few seconds, which can really be a problem in a chase. There's the Gas Man, this wacky stoner guy that thinks he's helping you by gassing you the fuck up against your will. He almost sees his work as a good thing, calling out that he's just trying to help. But he will gas you and instantly takes you down to the lowest sanity. The Skinner Man is soon to follow. I talked about him earlier. He can phase through walls and doors and is probably the fastest enemy in the game as of the beta. He will vanish when you use an antidote, however. Just a personal gripe if any Red Barrels devs are watching. This guy should disappear instantly when you use an antidote, because it's really annoying when you use the antidote and you still die to the Skinner Man despite the fact that you used it. It's like, come on. He should vanish when you aren't looking, sort of like Outlast 2's hallucination sequences. But I'm not a game dev, so fuck me. Personal favorite enemy, the clones, at least in terms of gameplay, they are basically just other patients that can pretend to be other players. So you'll just be chilling and see someone with a weird glitchy name, walk up to them assuming it's a friend, and then they pull out a knife and shank you 3 times. It's such a great way to create tension with the multiplayer, as you never really know if a player is a real person or an insane patient ready to snap. Makes every face-to-face encounter with your teammates just a bit more awkward, as you are both waiting for the other to snap and run at you with a knife. It's a really creative enemy design, and I can't count the amount of funny shit that's happened to me with them. Finally, we have the specials, is what I'm going to call them. These are specific enemies with goals and backstory. For this first level, we have Sergeant Coyle. He's a psycho cop that Murkoff took in to work for them. He loves being a cop, for all the wrong reasons. The special enemies, and all enemies for that matter, strike this amazing balance between being charming and interesting, while also being very threatening and quick to beat you down. I can't help but laugh when Coyle says something weird offhandedly. My favorite line is when he says he could really go for a bowl of pistachios. Seems like he's a fan. Overall, the enemies are such a step up from 2, already having so much more variety than that game ever did. Now that you're here proper and running around looking for a way out, you need to move this snitch. We'll get to him in a minute. All the way to this electric chair so you can kill him. I mean, Murkoff told you to, and they said they would let you out if you did, so what choice do you have? Before you can properly begin that, though, you need to go down to the basement to turn the power back on, as Coyle shut it off, the tricky bastard. This basement is such a great set piece. You need to lift this heavy-ass garage door to get in and out, as well as the place itself being pitch black, basically constantly requiring you to look for batteries. You need to repair a generator for each person on your team, or 2 if you're playing solo. These generators require gas, both panels on the side to be on, as well as a good few yanks on the cord, which is usually very loud and draws enemies. There isn't much story-wise to say here, but it's just such a great gameplay sequence. This is pretty much always where a team gets made or broken. If you're gonna die, it's gonna be in this basement. After turning on the generators and escaping the basement, alone or with your team, you can now push the snitch. The poor son of a bitch the snitch is. At first, you just assume he's another tortured soul, but if you listen closely to his dialogue, you'll hear that he used to be like you.
I knew what's gonna happen. I've been in your shoes. You don't have to do this.
He'll say things like, "Is this the therapy?" or "I want to go back to the sleep room." As he starts to realize what's going on, he'll get more angry and desperate, sometimes screaming out for help. Nobody answers but the psychos roaming the manufactured halls. The way his character goes through all 5 stages of grief as you push him to his death is truly the most Outlast thing that could ever happen in a multiplayer Outlast game. My favorite moment is when one of the random patients look at you and sharply say, "They're gonna put you in that chair one day." I seriously doubt that Murkoff will ever let us leave. Ever. But anyway, let's play their game, why don't we? For this next part of the trial, we need to push the snitch while unlocking these doors. These doors have symbol-coded keys. You can find these keys in dead bodies marked with the same symbol. Voila, gate open. I'd say the main issue with this mechanic is that sometimes those fuckers are really tucked away. In this one solo run I did, I spent a whole 5 to 10 minutes looking for this one key. Sometimes it'll give you a handy question mark telling you need to look at this body, but other times that question mark just won't show up and you'll miss a vital key that you need. It is a beta though, so it's hard for me to be too mad. But I love the key search. Pretty much every time this part of the game started, everyone just scattered. No point in staying together when you need to find those keys. Fast. All by about 3 or 4 crazy people are roaming at once. It's glorious. Some of my favorite arcade-style survival horror gameplay in years. You then take the snitch to the electroshock zone and kill him. Tragic loss. Now you can leave, though. Maybe Murkoff will finally let you go. Yeah, right. Outlast Trials is good, not just because it's a multiplayer Outlast game, but because it chose to sacrifice the kind of immersion you get in something like Outlast 2 to create a genuinely super fun game. It chose to have a more video gamey feel at the cost of immersion, which I think was an amazing choice, especially for the style that Trials is going for. Although you do have a HUD, and although you do have all these toys, you have a health bar, and some of the initial idea of Outlast is sacrificed, but it's really impressive to me that Trials remains extremely immersive and interesting. Playing this game feels like the last 20 minutes of Wreck, just completely unhinged chaos around every corner. It's like the best parts of found footage without all the stuff that weighed Outlast 2 down. I'm really impressed how Red Barrels has trimmed the fat off of this series, in the process creating a game that is not only scary and tense, but an excellent alternative to something like GTFO or DBD. I just wanted to make this because I was really impressed with this beta, and I couldn't start working on other videos until I got my thoughts out about this. So yeah, I just had to talk about it. I'm extremely hyped for the full release, and I wanted to share that with y'all. So, fuck. Quick update on my channel if you care. I plan on streaming more, so catch those here on my channel if you feel like it, as well as future video essays coming out. I'm working on getting a Discord server going, fucking etc. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this short review thing on Outlast, and remember, in a world of distrust, fear, and violence, your morals will be challenged, your endurance tested, and your sanity crushed. All in the name of progress, science, and profit.